Hello everyone, B.O.B. here, and welcome to another Minecraft video, and today we are talking about chunks. So the first thing we gotta go over here for the people that don't know is, well, what is a chunk? And the short explanation there is a chunk is a 16 by 16 area of the map that goes from bedrock to build limit. And it's by these chunks that your worlds are randomly generated. So basically when you start a new world, they're being pieced together chunk by chunk. Now there are certain chunks of the world that are significant. For example, slime chunks are chunks that slime can spawn in, whereas they can't spawn in other chunks of the world. And I'm sure you've heard another Minecrafter mention slime chunks at a time or two. So, I mean, like, finding chunk borders can be useful for building things like slime farms, but also other redstone contraptions. There are certain farms you wouldn't want to build directly on chunk borders because that could prove problematic. Um, and also, you'd want to know, well, basically how much of your world is loaded depending on what chunk you're standing in. And well, what I have here is kind of a diagram. Now this would be the loaded chunks for a world with a 4 chunk simulation distance. If I were standing in this orange chunk that I have right below me here, as I technically am, although I'm hovering in the ground, I'll land on the ground here. All of the chunks around me that are outlined are actually loaded, meaning those redstone contraptions you see from all our previous tutorials off in the distance there, none of them would be operational because the chunks that they are in are not loaded at this current time. Now, this range for loaded chunks is not standard for your Minecraft world. This is more specific to this particular redstone world, and you might find that some of your flat testing worlds also have a 4 chunk simulation distance. But I do believe your typical survival world, at least on PlayStation 4, would have an 8 chunk simulation distance. I'm pretty sure Switch would be a 6 chunk simulation distance, while PC would be a 10 chunk simulation distance. So as you can see, these 4 chunks outlined right in front of me here. I mean, if this were an 8 chunk simulation distance world, that would actually go 8 chunks from this orange chunk right below me, and all of those chunks would be loaded. So this diamond shape of loaded chunks that I have all around me here would be much, much bigger. Now, in case you're unaware of the simulation distance of the world you're playing in, this could obviously be checked in your settings in the Bedrock edition. So you'll just bring up your settings, and you'll want to look under your game settings and just kind of scroll down until you get, well, until you can see your seed. And just below your seed, you're going to see a slider that you can't access once the world has already started, and that's your simulation distance slider. And, well, as you can see in this world, it's actually set to 4 chunks. As I said, not standard. Your typical survival world on PlayStation would likely be 8 chunks. So knowing the simulation distance in your world, you can multiply that number by 16, the number of blocks in a chunk, and this will give you a rough idea of how far away from any particular, well, redstone contraption you can get before it stops working. In this case, as I've shown you, this world is a 4 chunk simulation distance. So if I multiply that number by 4, it's 64. If I get just a little more than 64 blocks away from any particular redstone contraption, it should stop working. And as I can demonstrate here, those 3 flashing redstone lamps, they, you know, they should continue flashing as long as those particular chunks are loaded. But if I were to just kind of back out into this chunk right here, I'm now in the chunk behind the orange one, and if I look up, you see these lights are no longer flashing, and that's because those chunks are no longer loaded. I am outside of that 4 chunk simulation distance from those lamps, so they're obviously not going to work. And you can kind of find the corners of these as well by moving side to side. If I were to just come to one side and you notice that lamp on the far side, well, that quit working. These other two, they're still flashing, and that lamp's still on. It's just no longer flashing because the redstone, which makes it flash, is no longer loaded, so it's no longer going to continue operating as it's supposed to. And same works for the other way. I come back over here, you see that one started flashing again, but I move over into this chunk, and now that one stopped flashing. So it's this game mechanic that can allow us to pinpoint these exact chunk borders. So just to demonstrate how you would do this in your typical survival world, I went ahead and just loaded up a typical infinite world. Now, of course, I'm in creative mode, and that's why I'm hovering in the sky here, but you see right in front of me, there's a great big open space. Now, this is a perfect location to do this little chunk finding experiment. And so I brought myself to z coordinate 50, or, well, negative 50, I should say. And this is an 8 chunk simulation distance world. So if you know, multiply that 8 by 16, we got 124 blocks away from this location is where I would have to place a lamp in order to find a chunk border in this area. So what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and travel 124 blocks in that direction. This, of course, would bring me to the z coordinate minus 174, and I actually kind of want to just go beyond this point. And well, I'm kind of down behind a hill right here, and that's not exactly ideal. What I want to do is create a flashing lamp that I can see from that uh, z minus 50 coordinate I was at before, which was kind of over there on that hillside. So I'm going to build a little platform here. I'll just bring this up a couple blocks so it can be seen over this little hillside. And, you know, obviously you would be doing this in survival. You wouldn't be able to fly, but you can build yourself a nice little platform that looks just like this. We'll go ahead and throw a lever on this block right here. Have that lever feeding into a comparator in subtract mode, and have that comparator feeding into a solid block. We could take a signal out of that solid block with a repeater, and we're going to feed it right back into the side of that comparator. So we'll just chain those two repeaters together with redstone dust. And for this, I like to actually slow down that tick, so I actually put one of these repeaters, doesn't matter which one, I set it at 3 ticks, and it just kind of slows down the flashing of this lamp whenever I turn it on. So you can see we got this lamp flashing, and what I want to do is head back over to the z minus 50 where I was at before. So here I am back at the z minus 50 coordinate, and I'm looking back at that lamp, and you can see off in the distance just above my cursor there that that lamp is flashing. But I know that I got to be close to the chunk border, which will unload that particular chunk that that lamp is in. So all I got to do is start backing up. And see, it happened already. That light is no longer flashing. It's just a solid on lamp. If I got to look down where I'm at z minus 48. So if I were to just step forward to z minus 49, now you can see that lamp's flashing again. Z minus 48, not flashing. Z minus 49, it is flashing. So I know that right here, there's a chunk border, and it's headed in this direction. So that's just the border of one chunk, right? We don't have the whole chunk mapped out. We have to find the corner of it to do that. So what you'd want to do is travel to one side or the other, and well, this side seems a bit more elevated, so I'm actually going to go in this direction. And basically what I want to do is keep myself in line with that z minus 49 coordinate. But well, I might actually have to fly to do this, so I can keep an eye on that lamp. And you don't want to back out. You want to kind of stay on the z minus 49 coordinate and just keep moving to one side. And as you can see, that lamp shut off. And I'm still in the z minus 49 coordinate, so I must have gone outside the chunk border to load that particular lamp. So I'll bring myself back in. I'm at 522x coordinate. We're at x coordinate 523, 524, 526, 27. Getting really close to that block. Maybe I was just, yeah. So 525, 527, 529, 528. So here, at the x-coordinate 528, in line with that z minus 49 coordinate, I believe that if we look in the distance, we can see the lamp flashing. If we step to the x-coordinate 527, the lamp is no longer flashing. So this here, quarter of a chunk right here. So we know that the chunk goes in 16 blocks in this direction. So we'll count that block as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So that'd be 16 blocks back in the direction of the lamp, and then 16 blocks in the direction from where we started this project from. So count this block as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, that'd be 13, 14. Well, this would be 14, 15, 16. So that right there, that would be a chunk all mapped out. All you'd have to do is kind of close in this square. Now, if this doesn't find you the exact chunk you were hoping to outline, whatever it may be, hoping to map out, you can use this as a guideline to find chunks in the area. Obviously, they would be right in line with this one. It'd be another chunk right here. 1. Let me count it. 1. Here, actually, let's break. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So this would be a chunk border in its own, and this chunk would go in this direction as well, of course. And, you know, if you're just trying to find a specific chunk, you don't have to map out every single one. It's all about counting out those blocks. But that's how you do it. I mean, it's actually really simple, especially whenever you figure out the mechanics behind it all. It's definitely not hard to find those chunk borders. Like you see, I'm standing inside this chunk. That lamp's flashing. Inside of this chunk, lamp's flashing. Go outside, stops. I could probably go over on this side and it would still be flashing as that chunk would still be loaded, but a little bit to the right of this, it would stop because I got outside of this chunk here. So there you have it, friends. Chunk border finding, no mods necessary, and it's actually pretty easy to do. As always, if you enjoyed this video, you found it helpful, please remember to hit that like button, and if you're interested in seeing more from me, consider hitting that subscribe button as well. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching and wish you all a wonderful day.